Good morning, New Brunswick. We're here with New Brunswick's seven-term mayor, James Cahill. Thank you so much for joining us. It's an honor and a pleasure to speak with you this morning.
My pleasure, Charlie. Good to see you.
Back at you. Wanted to start off with just a real simple question. It's a decision you're going to have to make. Not sure if you made it yet. Will you seek another term, an eighth term?
This is the way we start this off every time, I think, lately. So, and as I've indicated to you before, we still have some time on that. The real decision-making time is about a year from now.
Okay.
So we'll continue to give it some thought and see, whether or not it's advisable for the city and to continue to serve. But we'll make that decision in about a year or so.
Okay, and I know, I think in your early days as mayor, you used to give a State of the City address every year, and you haven't been doing that recently. You do it now every couple years or every 4 years, every term. Tell folks what they can expect this year. What is the State of the City and what's in store for us in 2017?
2017, we'll be looking to the implementation of our revaluation. That will have some impact on taxpayers, individual taxpayers across the board. It will be, all things being equal, we have the same revenues, we have the same expenses, that all things will be the same, but the dispersion of who's responsible for those types of things oftentimes changes during the course of a revaluation.
This is the first time that one has happened under your
This first one,
administration.
the last one was done the year before I came into office in 1990.
Right. And how's it going so far? Is it they've completed the inspections?
They've completed the inspections. I'm certain they've completed them on the residential side. I'm pretty sure they've completed them on the commercial side. People who have not yet had their inspection done, but have now received an indication of what their assessment is going to be, has the right to continue to communicate to the revaluation company and to provide access to that person if they think they may have taken something, they may have been in error or taken something into consideration that they shouldn't have taken into consideration. So all of that, but in any event, in 2017, that will be rolled out, and we'll be dealing with that, I'm sure. Economically, it's a little early to determine where we're going to be. There's nothing that seems like it's going to be a bad fiscal year for us. There's no indication as of this point in time of significant drop in state aid or those types of things that generally cause havoc. No indication that there's going to be significant increase in contributory costs like pensions, Social Security, discussions and contracts with employees are all pretty within reasonable parameters. So there's nothing that is looming that seems to be foreboding for us. So fiscally, we should be in good shape. We will continue to devote the bulk of our dollars in public safety issues, police and fire. We'll continue to make capital improvements to our water utility, which we need to spend the monies on, continue to spend monies on. That's, it's in many ways, we also have the Performing Arts Center, which will, from a construction perspective or redevelopment perspective, we will begin the construction of the new Performing Arts Center.
Right, so that's the plan. This would be the final season for the George Street Playhouse and the Crossroads Theater in their current space, and then they would tear those down and build probably the tallest building in New Brunswick.
Could be, yeah.
On that site. And so tell me, what is going to happen to those theaters during the construction time? Is there a space for them to be in temporarily? Has that been selected yet?
Crossroads is looking at space that they can do. They run less programming than George Street, so I'm going to Believe that it's going to be a little bit easier for them to find appropriate accommodations during the short period of time, but I don't mean to speak for them. George Street is also looking for space. They are in the process of discussions with another site for a 2-year period, which is the estimated time it's going to take us to do the demolition and development. And hopefully within the next week or two, they'll wrap up their discussions. Right now, we're also looking to, well, they're the two major users. There's some office users that are in both sites that will be able to figure something out.
Okay. And then everyone can't help but notice the Ferrin deck finally coming down. Huge, massive structure. Tell us what we can expect, or when we can expect to see something go in there, and what might that be?
Well, the crystal ball's not really forecasting this one yet. One of the reasons why we're demolishing, among several, is to create vision. That when we've shown developers the site in the past, and/or prospective tenants for the site, they can't believe that we can turn that project around. I get a sense that they can't believe we can turn that project around in 24 months or less. They see a massive concrete structure and say, well, if we need to get in within 2 years, you're just not going to be able to accomplish it. So we figure if we create a piece of virgin land, that at least that hurdle of the demolition part is gone. Secondly, we believe people will see the size of the property and its capability. So it is the demolition, in addition to being a safety issue and eliminating a vacant building from people trespassing, getting hurt on the site, or something else happening with it. It's also a marketing issue that allows us to show the property in a better light.
Okay. A couple other development projects I wanted to ask about. Maybe you have some insight. I know 90 New Street has been approved for a 22-story skyscraper.
Yes.
And the earliest approval dates back to 2009 on that.
Yes.
Nothing really happening at the site. Do you know what's in store for that project?
The current developer is both looking to do what their approvals call for, but I also get a sense that they're also marketing it for another potential developer. So I don't expect that to be moving anytime in the immediate future. That's what my expectation is. But I've often seen that sometimes all of a sudden somebody, whatever it was that was the impediment for them pulling the trigger, they now figure out a way to get around that, and the next thing you know, we get a phone call and somebody's ready to construct within 60 days.
Gotcha.
So, but as of now, I don't see that happening.
Okay. And right next to there, the Elks property, I've heard that there might be plans to build another tall building there. Have you heard that? Is there?
I've heard that. I don't have the details of it. Tall is a word that has a lot of different definitions in New Brunswick today.
Sure.
Tall, I think, yes, in a sense of taller than what's there today. Tall, not necessarily in a sense of some of the other structures that have gone up in the city.
Gotcha. But that is in the works?
I know that the Elks, of which I am a member, have been looking to use that site to create some equity and/or some operational costs to help sustain the Elks. They held a meeting that I did not go to discuss to the members a proposal. It was at that meeting that there was a layout of a structure, and I don't remember how tall. I want to say it was probably not less than 8, no more than 12 stories. Elks facilities on the ground floor, office or residential above it. I'm not really sure.
Sure. Do you know who the developer
I don't.
proposing that is? Okay.
No,
And
I don't.
okay. Well, I guess.
Yeah, to me, these types of things, because we have so much on our plate at any given time, when it becomes real is when I really start to focus on these things. Right now, I'm not sure it's at that stage.
Gotcha. Okay. 2 more projects I want to ask about. The one would be called the Matrix Building. That's the large new building going in on Nelson Street. It's been under construction for a couple of years now. Do you have any idea when that might come online?
I don't.
Okay.
It looks like the bulk of the exterior is finished up. Other structure-wise, obviously,
Right.
whatever site amenities they need to do haven't been touched yet as a construction site. It looks to me like they're doing interior fit-out now. So how far along they are, I don't know.
Okay.
But it looks like it's getting there.
And then the last one was kind of a big dream of a project back in '08. It was designed for some huge buildings, including a hotel and a lot more, called the Pinnacle Project. That would be in the Redmond Street area. Tell us, is there anything going on with that, or is that kind of? I noticed the buildings have been boarded up there. A lot of
They've been
the
boarded
homes.
up. I think the economy has really hurt that developer slash property owner.
Okay.
And that was a very ambitious plan.
Indeed.
I thought very ambitious even for the time when the economy was going full speed ahead. When the economy took a nosedive, 2007, 2009, it was not a good sign for that type of development. The city looks to move that property, not just for that particular design, but if you go back in time and you look at a concept that the city had developed a number of years ago, I want to say, and we had an acronym for it. I think it was CORE.
Core.
Yeah.
Yeah. CORE.
That would be a great connection between the hospital campuses, the government center, the university, and over the years we've taken little inroads in there with some Rutgers development, and the hospital has kind of moved over to Plum Street. It would be something that we would look to have either Rutgers or the hospital or private sector, something that would work in conjunction with that concept. I think bodes well for the city.
Okay. And so, speaking of developers, one is about to become our president in less than a week. Tell me, do you know Donald Trump? Have you ever met him? And what do you think his presidency means for everybody here in New Brunswick?
I don't know him personally. I only know him from what anybody's ever seen him on TV.
Sure.
Never met him. What do I think as president? I think we need to. I think we will see. I mean, I know that my mother used to tell me all the time will tell. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things he has said and has done which do not look like they'll be beneficial to the residents of the city of New Brunswick as a whole. On the other hand, there are some things that he's talked about that could be beneficial. I think that one of the things I've seen about this particular campaign was that talk was cheap, and what somebody said on any given day was not going to be the same thing they said the next day. But government and government has to be not about what people say, but what about people do, what people do. And I think he, as the president, will be in the spotlight even more so than he has been thus far. And we're going to have ample opportunity to see what kind of president he is, what kind of man he is, and what kind of individual he is in care, not only in the executive side of being a president, but also in the human side of being a president.
Yeah. Were there any lessons that you took away from that election? That obviously you supported his opponent, and a lot of people were surprised by the outcome. Were you surprised by the outcome? Did you feel that you learned any lessons?
Yeah, I was surprised. I think the one lesson that I took away is that as a citizen of the United States, of the world as well, will we ever really know the truth? When you think about it, that there are 30-second snippets that are given here, 30-second snippets that are given there. There are a whole bunch of people that weigh in on both sides. There's more talking heads on television and radio that talk incessantly about these things. And there are articles written. And given a certain set of facts, there can only be there could only be one truth to those. Now, there could be different interpretations of them, but nevertheless, with so many people opining on things, that we as citizens trying to get a really good understanding of facts, positions, history, in order to make an informed and intelligent vote, are finding it harder and harder to do.
And I want to talk about the thousands of immigrants that are here in New Brunswick, and your views on that sector of the population here. What are you going to do to protect them? Do you consider New Brunswick to be a sanctuary? And what do you think is going to be in store for them?
Well, since I've been in office, we've had a very simple policy with regard to immigrants and non-immigrants in the city, and that is, if you live here and you abide by the rules of citizenship, that you are one of us, and that you should enjoy all of the protections that our government can provide. The declaring of being a sanctuary city, I think, is more form over substance, because the impact of a sanctuary city is to protect the rights of the people that live there, and we've done that now for 20 plus years.
Including undocumented?
Including undocumented.
People who don't have their papers?
Yeah, including undocumented. So we will do nothing different than what we have done every day during the course of my administration, and that's protect the rights of all those that live here.
Okay. And one of the big issues for the undocumented community is driving privileges. It's something that a lot of folks came to a city council meeting back in 2015 about. Tell me, is that something you support? Do you think New Jersey should offer driving privileges to undocumented?
I believe I actually wrote a letter to state officials at some point in time in support of that. Look, I think it's silly for government to put its head in the sand and act like the undocumented residents are not here. For decades, 30, 40, 50 years, the federal government, the state government, everybody has turned a blind eye to the fact that these people were coming in to the United States. And they certainly were okay with these residents providing benefit to the economy, that they did, for whatever purpose it is. And it didn't matter if you were a Democrat or Republican. The federal government has not been able to foster a policy on this in 50 years, that it's been an issue. In the 50 years, I'm not sure that's the exact time, but it certainly seems like it. So for all of a sudden to act like these people are to be treated significantly different, particularly if they've been here for 30, 40 years, are now in their second, third, not impossible fourth generations, just becomes an exercise in futility, I think. So, driver's license, how do they get to work? Do they jump in the back of a van? Do they somehow walk to work? Do you not want them to work? Do you want them not to have a job and to be a drain on society in some way, or do you want them to be contributing members of society? And then if you get them if they do have a job, then don't you want them to be able to access that job in a way that is safe? Secondly, if you get them licenses, then they can get insured.
Right.
And it is a better protection for the rest of us.
For everybody.
So I think, I'm hopeful that the dialogue on immigration with a new president will be fruitful. And I'm hoping it's not going to focus just on whether or not a wall is built or not, but what's in the best interest of the United States and all the people that make up the United States. Documented, undocumented, and where do we go from here?
I just want to change gears real quick. Kind of related to the federal government, New Brunswick Housing Authority is a federal agency, and you get to appoint somebody, the council gets to appoint 5 people, and the state governor is also entitled to appoint a member to the board of the New Brunswick Housing Authority. But for his entire time in office, Chris Christie has not approved anyone, not appointed anyone. Will you today call on Governor Christie to do his duty and appoint somebody to serve on that board, or do you think it's better off without a representative of the state?
I will not call Governor Christie today to ask him to appoint somebody to the authority.
Okay, I mean, do you not think it's necessary or helpful to have that 7th person on the board?
Oh, I think anytime you have a full complement of a board, it is helpful. The prior board member serves, the prior appointment from the state serves in that capacity unless and until replaced. I know that Mr. Capano has not shown up to meetings when he retired from a state job. His expertise was very helpful to the authority. As a result of his new employment, he felt that it was going to be difficult for him to get to meetings. He indicated that he would get there if necessary, but I don't recall if he actually resigned.
I was told that he left the board by John Clark.
I don't know if that's formal or informal, and you know what, Charlie, that's a good thing for me to check when I get back. But in any event, the governor knows what appointments need to be made. It's not the governor's appointment technically; it's under the statute. It's the it's the
DCA.
DCA, Department of Community Affairs. So we'll see.
Okay, and just my 2 cents, it would be wise to have somebody on there who maybe a woman, because it's an all-male board right now, and
yes, it is.
Might make some sense to
Yes,
have
it is. Okay, great.
a woman on the board. I'd
That's
like
a
to see the
reasonable
governor do
opinion.
his duty and appoint someone. You said that it's best to have a full complement of members for the boards. I know the New Brunswick Ethics Board hasn't had a meeting since last summer, I believe, and a couple of the folks on that board have resigned, so now there's only 4 out of the 6 members, and so my question is, whose responsibility is it to replace them, and when can people expect that
It's
to
mine.
happen? Okay.
And that's with the reorganization of all the boards. That's what I do at the end of the year, beginning of a new year, and that's what I'm looking at. That's the criterion that no more than 3 people can be of the same political affiliation.
Right.
In New Brunswick, sometimes that can become a little bit difficult.
I understand. But so by maybe the next council meeting in February, or
I would think by the first meeting in February. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable time frame.
Thank you. And wanted to ask also about the water utility. The first question would be, do you regret not appointing a qualified, dedicated water director for those 5 years when you had your BA running the utility?
I don't second guess myself on issues. And the answer would be, so the quick answer is no. Because all of the decisions I make are based upon the absolute best information that I have available at the time. The water utility, from a management perspective, functioned very well under Tom Laughlin's leadership. Tom did not have the expertise as a licensed water operator, but we thought we were in pretty good shape with Ed O'Rourke, who in that capacity supplemented by our consulting engineers. Ed had experience of, at that time, probably 25, 30 years of experience with the highest licenses available. What we realized what I realized subsequent to that when we brought in Frank Marasha, that it gave us a level of redundancy that we did not have before. And having two experts to look at certain things that were going on is what led us to understand that Ed O'Rourke was doing some things with the records that was inappropriate and criminal.
Right.
But having said that, we were in a position after Tom's leadership and after fully understanding now from an administrative perspective, the management of a water utility from a laborer's perspective, from a repairs perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, it gave us the opportunity to now build fully and to reorganize the water utility in a way that will be beneficial to its consumers for the next 50 years.
Okay. And so Ed O'Rourke went to state prison for public corruption, covering up problems in the water, endangering the customers of the New Brunswick water utility, and he was actually released on parole in November, I believe. So there was about 9 months he spent in state prison. Do you think that's fair for the crime he committed, when sometimes people caught with possession of controlled dangerous substance go away for longer? Is that fair, the sentence or the punishment?
I don't know. I really don't. I take a little bit of issue with your question because within your question you said he endangered the health of the public or something like
The
that.
customers,
Whatever,
yeah,
the customers.
drinking water.
I don't know that that's something that was established. We certainly know that he did not accurately report things. He falsified documents. We know that.
And there were times when people should have been told to boil the water, and they weren't told, right?
I'd have to go back and look at that. I'm not sure about that, Charlie. And forgive me, I know this is something that you are very focused on, and rightly so. But it's among the many things that I need to worry about in the course of a day. I don't know if there was a failure to provide notice. But just because you have, but let's assume for the moment there is, that doesn't necessarily mean somebody's in danger. So, having said that, if the offense is one that is falsifying documents, then 9 months, 12 months, 18 months, I don't know that 1 day in jail isn't enough punishment. By the way, not that. I think being in jail at all is a significant punishment. Is 9 months enough? I don't have trouble with that if it's solely based upon falsifying documents. If there was real jeopardy to the public, if there was endangerment, then I think it might be shy of where it should be.
Okay.
And I'm not saying your question is wrong. I just off the top of my head don't recall it. So.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's new allegations, new criminal charges this time regarding the billing and meter reading division at the water utility.
Yeah.
Tell me, do you believe there is or was a conspiracy to undercharge or overcharge certain customers of the utility?
Yeah. During the course of an investigation, I can't really comment on that. But there is certainly enough information there that led us to believe that we needed to suspend both employees.
Okay. And tell me about the water rates. Are they equal for all water customers, or do certain people get a better deal than others per cubic foot? Like I know that the hospitals used to get a big discount.
There is separate standards for industry versus residential.
Okay, but all the residential customers in Milltown, New Brunswick, and on the parts of Franklin that we serve, it's all the same rate?
Milltown and Franklin get the same rate, and New Brunswick is done by a different barometer.
Okay, so do you know if folks in Milltown and Franklin pay more or less than New Brunswick?
It's a negotiated amount. I'll get you the numbers.
Okay.
Rather than have me speculate, it's all
Sure.
done by ordinance and agreement.
Okay. And so there's about, city website estimates there's about 7,900 water meters throughout the city. Do you have any idea what portion or what percentage of the quarterly bills that go out are based on estimates, and what portion are based on actual readings of those meters?
I don't.
Okay. We've heard from some folks that the estimated bills are really burning them, and I don't know exactly what the issue is, but I know that when the batteries die in those little radio readers, if they're not replaced, the meters don't get read and they just start estimating the bills. Is there any plan to replace those batteries and restore that ability to actually get actual readings at those places?
Well, with regard to how many are estimated versus that, all that information is obtainable. It's not information I have off the top of my head. If somebody is getting an estimated reading, the only thing they need to do is to call the water utility and get somebody to come out and do an actual reading.
And they just let them into the house.
And they let them into the house. Now, one way or the other, they've got to fix the problem. So it's like if you have trouble with your electric meter, you have trouble with your gas meter, that the problem needs to be resolved. So there is no good reason for an estimated reading to take place for more than a quarter or two, unless there's extenuating circumstances.
Fair enough. We were given a water meter, and we were actually going to go test it, and then the New Brunswick police came and took it from us. That was somewhat disturbing. More disturbing was the statement that your office released, basically endorsing that action, and I just wanted to ask, did you approve that statement that went out on the mayor's office
Yes.
letterhead? Yeah. And so can you tell me, the statement implied that I had actually tampered with evidence. Can you tell me what was the basis for making that claim in the press release?
Well, tampering is interfering with something so as to cause the potential to weaken or change the results. When asked for the meter, you didn't turn it over. You're going to go have it inspected by somebody else. That meter is something that, by your own statements, indicated it was possibly criminal or used in a crime. And so whatever action you took or would take could alter that product and would impede the ability of law enforcement to do its own investigation. So that was the basis for it.
Okay. Is the investigation looking into the theft of services, the theft of the water, or is it just it appeared to be just a stolen property investigation at the time I was served with the warrant?
And I've asked that law enforcement look at that meter in conjunction with every possible criminal activity that could take place with that meter. In direct answer to your question, yes. I think that not only is it potential of a stolen property investigation, but given the ongoing investigation that is happening with the water utility on billing, that I think it ought to be reviewed in conjunction with that as well.
Okay. And as of presently, nobody else has been suspended from the water utility?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess I did want to ask you about the Ford Avenue site in Milltown.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we did a story on the oil spill incident that happened
Yes.
there. I know you're involved representing the government agency that
redevelopment agency.
that handles that particular piece of land, and just wanted to ask, how could something like that happen? what and what's going to be done to prevent something like that from happening?
It was done as part of a demolition that was, I believe, ordered by the municipal court in Milltown. And property owners not only have the right to demolish property, but in this case were ordered to demolish property. As part of that, the contractor apparently failed to take appropriate procedures. And so how do you prevent that from happening in the future? You make sure that the contractor follows appropriate procedures.
Okay, that's I guess not within the purview of the Milltown Ford Avenue agency because the site is still owned by a private person. So what's going on with that site? It's been
in litigation.
A long time, and
it is in litigation that was started some 10 years ago, and there's multi-facets to it. So it right now it is the issue is the litigation is what's called a builder's remedy suit. Builder's remedy suit is municipalities have an affordable housing obligation. If the municipality does not take sufficient action to meet its obligation for affordable housing, a property owner can contest or can file an application with the court seeking to be appointed as a developer of affordable housing, and in effect force the borough to do it. The borough had in the early 2000s designated Borai Development as the redeveloper of the site. I believe that's the timing of it, but it may be somewhat later than that, and called for residential development to take place on the site. There was several different plans, but all basically predominantly residential in the rear section of the property and some commercial towards the front. When a redevelopment plan was executed, redevelopment agreement was executed in the, let's say, mid-2000s, the property owner, there's 3 properties, all owned by separate entities, but all have the same common principle in it. Filed suit saying it should call for affordable housing on the site, and asked the court to appoint the current property owner as the developer of the site, remove Borai from it, and put on the site significantly more housing units than was eventually ordered by the court in 2012, the early part of 2012. And that court decision in 2012 has evolved into a number of offshoots of litigation, including contests of planning board approvals, and the latest go-around for the delay is in March of 2015, the New Jersey Supreme Court, in the absence of COA, Council on Affordable Housing, making any decisions on third-round obligations of municipalities, ruled that trial courts will handle that responsibility on an individual basis. So the redevelopment plan and redevelopment agreement that was adopted and executed in 2013 dealt with the borough's obligations through the second round. And so the property owner filed an action seeking to set aside the prior approved plan so that the borough, contending that the borough needs to use the Ford Avenue site to include all or a portion of its third round obligation for affordable housing. And that has created now probably another close to a year delay.
Gotcha. And so, first things first, the oil spill has been cleaned up, and
Yes.
has the city been able to resume pumping water from
Yes.
the Weston's mill? Okay.
Yes. It turned out from our information that the oil was mineral oil, and was not a carcinogen or anything really hazardous.
Okay. And
But still something you don't want in your drinking water.
sure, sure. And so the agency you represent, your position is you guys would prefer to have Boride Development do the development, or Lawrence Berger, or is there a certain way that the agency feels?
The agency had determined years ago that it should be Borai. The Borai plan is one that is much more, it is a better plan for the borough.
Okay.
The borough's sense and the agency's sense was that they want to provide for market rate housing and also meet its affordable housing obligation. But the Berger plan calls for over 500, I believe 550 units, which is 200 more than what the Borai plan is, and it creates a very dense, overdeveloped site with little amenities on it, and something that is significantly different than the rest of the borough, and one that would alter the character of the borough going forward.
Sure, sure. Now, this is a site that's on the water, and if I recall, the original plan was going to build almost like right up to that, shoreline there.
Actually, no. Well, I don't know about the original plan. I can tell you about
before you were.
the 2000.
But I know now the county's involved, right? And the county's going to purchase some of that, or can you update us on that?
Yes, there is a requirement of either a 50 or 100-foot buffer that would run along the water's edge. It would be owned by the county. It would provide a access to the public to the waterfront, to the pond, and it also would provide a corridor to some county open space that it's already dedicated on the rear of the property, the Brook Drive.
Okay.
On the opposite side of the property from Main Street. There is some dedicated county open space and preserved land over there. So we create a nexus connection between Main Street and that area as well.
Okay. So you think that's an improvement over the plan before the county?
I do,
got involved?
yeah.
Okay. And I guess I just want to ask, we've talked about it before, but why did you decide to take that job representing this government agency in a neighboring, or a nearby town? Is this, what's your reason for doing that?
I like redevelopment.
Okay.
I like it. It's something I did for 10 years as an assistant city attorney. I like the challenge of it. And it also is beneficial to me in my New Brunswick role because it keeps me current with the law. It keeps me up to date with different strategies that are available for redevelopment. So, and I also like to be helpful. I think government has a real role in getting things done when things can't otherwise get done. And redevelopment is a good example of that. So I thought that there might be some benefit to the redevelopment agency for me to serve in that capacity and bring the benefit of my years of experience, both as an attorney and as an executive, into the process.
Cool. So
I'd like to think it's been helpful, but at the end of the day, we haven't really moved we've moved the ball down the road pretty far, but if it wasn't for the New Jersey Supreme Court decision in March of 2015, that project would be underway.
Gotcha. And so I want to ask you about two developers, Devco, of course, New Brunswick Development Corporation, and Borai Development, both big players here in New Brunswick. Both also are getting involved down in Atlantic City with different projects. that they hope will be successes in that
Yeah.
city. Wanted to ask you to speak about those two developers and their track record here, and how you think it bodes for their success in another very different city. But
Well, I don't know. I can't speak about what success they will or will not have in Atlantic City, because it's a different form of government. It's a different environment. But if there are two developers that will be successful, I think it would be the two of them. And they come at things from a significantly different approach. And I think Atlantic City is going to be benefited by the involvement of both developers. I wish Atlantic City well with them. I wish both developers well with them. Devco, as you know, is a New Brunswick entity that's mission is to serve the residents of the city of New Brunswick. But because of their experience and expertise, they take their experience and expertise on the road in Newark, as well as in Atlantic City, to help jumpstart some projects there that are otherwise difficult to get going, if not impossible. I also think that the Borais are visionary in what they see and what they can get done, and their willingness to invest in what could otherwise be difficult projects to get done. So both Devco and the Borais, I think, are unique in a sense that, unlike some developers that go after low-hanging fruit, in other words, great piece of property, great location, easy development costs, etc. The Borais from a for-profit perspective and Devco from a not-for-profit perspective, which are different approaches, to say the least. Both are assertive, creative in being able to bring a project that, while difficult, to bring it to fruition, and one that's beneficial to the community at large.
okay, just a couple more questions for you. I wanted to ask about the police department internal affairs. Of course, in 2011 there was criminal charges against the guy who was in charge of IA, and he I guess ended up resolving that case. But you made some changes to the way IA does reporting, and
Yep.
and since those changes, actually this year, or this past year, we're still waiting on the December numbers, but already more complaints have been sustained than any year prior since that situation, and a greater percentage of complaints are sustained. What do you take away from that statistic? Do you think that means there needs to be more done, since there's more complaints getting verified as valid? Do you think there's an opportunity for increased transparency, something like a civilian review board, like many of the folks here, including myself, have been calling for? Do you think we can do more as a city to hold police accountable?
Well, I think by any standard of measurement, you'll find that the police department continues to improve in their service to the community, their interaction with the community. I don't think that there's more instances or complaints are sustained is an indication that there's a problem. I think it's an indication that things are improving, and that the standard of tolerance of inappropriate behavior on the part of police department is being held and enforced. So I don't think that it's time for change of what we're doing today. I think it's doubling up on the efforts and making sure that our training, that our review, that our investigations, that the number of officers we have assigned to IA are sufficient, and that we have the right folks that are involved in it to hold our police officers accountable. I'm pleased with the progress that's been made. I'm also, in certain areas that are of importance, and that's the use of police force and things like that. You take a look at the number of arrests that our officers encounter in the city of New Brunswick on an annual basis, and you look at the number of instances that they need to use force. And bear in mind, force is defined in a lot of different ways, but it is even the placing of a hand on somebody to cuff them or to place them under arrest. So force is not just wrestling somebody to the ground or using a weapon of some sort. You see that those numbers are very minimal, and so those are the areas that we look at to see whether or not our police department is interacting appropriately with the community.
Sure. And another indicator would be lawsuits, filed against the police department. I know the city settled with the Deloach family for, I believe, $300,000. What would you say to the family of Barry Deloach, whose life was taken by a New Brunswick police officer?
What would I say to them?
Yeah.
It was taken by a police officer, but there's circumstances that are involved in those types of things that maybe Mr. Deloach shouldn't have run. Maybe he shouldn't have gotten into an altercation with the police officer that made another police officer think he had to use his weapon. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen in those circumstances. I wasn't there, but I would suggest that not only do we examine the role of the police in any of these types of things, but we also have to look at the responsibility of the community as well. And so when certain circumstances arise that cause extraordinary measures to be taken, I think we're all a little bit culpable for that.
Okay, and I know there's also lawsuits filed by former police officers themselves against yourself,
Yep.
the director, the business administrator. And I just wanted to ask you, I know you get to have your lawyer paid for at taxpayer expense.
Yep.
You selected somebody, I guess Mr. Donahue, is
Yep.
it? Can you just tell me a little about him, why you chose him to represent yourself?
He's a good lawyer.
Yeah?
He's a good lawyer.
Does he represent a lot of government officials or things like that, or does he specialize in police matters? Why? I'm just curious what.
Well, he's just a good lawyer, and through the process, I've come to know Tim over the years, and I think he's got a personality that works well with mine. I think he's got he sees things similar to the way that I do, but also he gives good advice. So I'm using him because I like him.
Okay.
And I think he's a good lawyer.
Okay, just two more questions. What's the city doing to control legal costs? So that's just one case. There's many cases going on. There's city hall attorneys, but they also sometimes hire outside attorneys. And in one case in particular, an arbitration case, it's already over $200,000.
Yep.
So what is the city doing to control those legal bills?
Well, it's no different than what we do to control all bills and all expenses. We look to negotiate rates that are less than what somebody might otherwise require. We try to avoid litigation by always acting appropriately, but sometimes people have the right to sue people for any reason whatsoever. Period. There is no gate at the entrance to the courthouse that says you shall not enter unless you have a real case. And in New Brunswick's instances, I would suggest to you that some of these cases are not real. But you'd have to go through the process. And to try these cases, sometimes, and use the Deloach matter as an example, to try that case would cost millions of dollars. So you settle a case. At some point, you cut your losses as best you possibly can. And so if the case you're talking about, I believe, is the Marvac case?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a situation where, if I remember the details exactly, we were doing some work. One of our residents in town suggested that we shouldn't be doing the work we were doing because it was in Bugalo Park. We decided to take a look at it. To take another look at it. We got clearance from the agency that reviews the work in Bugalo Park because it's held in a trust. And we then got the contractor back engaged in the process, and we moved forward. That I may have that. Marbach was in a different case too. It might be the Remsen Avenue case.
I think that's one of
Remsen
those.
Avenue.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's the second.
Same company.
Same
Okay.
company, different litigation.
Okay.
On that, and maybe it's not the same company. The Remsen Avenue project was one that has been difficult from the beginning. And we just have a very significant different opinion than Marbach as to what they were supposed to do, what they weren't supposed to do, and how much of the cost that is. To the point where they're claiming millions of dollars. So the option is, if you're unwilling to pay them the millions of dollars, and if you can't agree as to a reasonable number somewhere in between, in today's world, you either litigate through the court system, or in this case arbitration, and you let somebody else make the decision. Unfortunately, that costs money. And so when we need to spend it, we have to spend it, but it's always done with the idea of protecting the public from what we think is a worst case scenario.
And just want to wrap up by asking about some of the different scandals in 2016. So we had 2 firefighters that pled guilty now to fraud and other offenses in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got 2 water utilities we mentioned facing official misconduct charges. A couple of DPW employees facing theft by extortion charges, and also 4 New Brunswick Parking Authority employees facing charges related to bribery. And what is your administration going to do about the corruption in city government in 2017 to eliminate it, or
We're going to
stop it?
We're going to go back to the basics and start to remind people. I mean, one of the things that continues to surprise me, and it's not just in government work, it is in any walk of life, that there are certain basic understandings that it is not yours, you do not take it. If it goes beyond the scope of your job, you don't do it if it's illegal. And you know, we've gone through training in the past, and I think we're going to have to just step it up and remind people as to what type of conduct is permissible and what type of conduct is not permissible. And while it may be basic and elementary to have to go through that process, and I'd like to think we all learned it when we were 2 years old, we're going to have to go back and do that. The second thing is we have to look at our accounting systems. To look at what type of record keeping do we have, what kind of oversight do we have, what type of, I talked before about redundancy and leadership in the water utility. We talked about that. We have to look at redundancy in record keeping as well, and accountability in record keeping. So if something that has been the way we've done things for the last 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, et cetera, I think we need to look at whether or not, with the technology that's out there today, whether or not there's a better way that we can keep track of these things, so that in the instance that somebody decides to do something wrong, and by the way, anybody who is charged but not convicted yet is presumed to be innocent. So that if anybody has been charged and or did something wrong, we'll have a better understanding or ability to monitor that and maybe prevent it in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for taking the time today, and Happy New Year. Wish you well.
And to you, Charlie, all the best.